Welcome to Larry's Library and welcome to a new show I'm going to do for Mondays. I am calling the Check-In Weekly. Now, that's not to be confused with my check-in show that I do live on Saturdays once a month with my daughter Kristen. That show will eventually return, and it is slightly different format than this one, and of course it's live and it's with Kristen. Whenever she gets back from her YouTube maternity leave, we will start those back up. But meanwhile, I'm trying something different for Mondays. Instead of doing a review of a single book, I'm going to do a sort of weekly wrap-up where I talk about the things that I've read and or watched the previous week, and I'll shoot that on a Saturday and have it up by Monday. That's the concept. Now, this show will not include my FOMO list or any of that info or any of the sort of behind-the-scenes stuff that sometimes I talk about on the show with Kristen. That's reserved for that show. So hopefully that returns soon. Now, a couple of things I've got for this week didn't actually happen last week. It happened a little bit longer ago than that, but I didn't have anywhere else to put it and I wanted to talk about it. So I'm going to throw a couple of those things in. They're a little bit older. But as I move forward, if this style of video is well received, then I will, it'll become more real time and it'll be closer to the mark. So I am still doing a read-through of the Lee Kirby Fantastic Fours, the omnibuses, and actually beyond that eventually, starting to get into those now. I did just finish Fantastic Four Omnibus Volume 3. And boy, it was good. Had a really good time with this one. This is Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Arguably, maybe their best era. I mean, in Omnibus Volume 3, you have the introduction of the Silver Surfer and the Inhumans. It's wild. And you have the awesome inking of Joe Sinnott. And I think the Joe Sinnott inking is so clean and detailed on Kirby. It might be my favorite Kirby inking. It really might. I have to think hard about that because Kirby's had a lot of great inkers. He's had some that are so-so, but a couple of really bad ones. We won't talk about that. But Joe Sinnott's inks here are just fabulous. Loved it so much. A lot of the stuff in here is kind of goofy, as you might expect Silver Age Stan Lee to be. But it was great seeing the Inhumans and the Silver Surfer. And one wild thing about this that I didn't realize before, because I hadn't read this material. I've read a couple issues, but I hadn't read it all the way through like this. Is that the term power cosmic didn't come about until the Silver Surfer got his own series. All through this, it says cosmic power. And, you know, it's kind of vague like that. And I always think of, when I think of the Silver Surfer, the first thing I think of is the power cosmic. And I guess that's because in every appearance of the Silver Surfer, and there's been a ton of them throughout Marvel Comics, all through the Bronze Age and past that, where you would have the Silver Surfer, they would always say the power cosmic. So that just stuck in my mind. But it wasn't in the FF, or at least not in this era of FF. It was after he got his own series. First half of this Omni was a pretty slow read. But as you get to about the halfway point and then the last quarter of this book, it reads a lot faster because Stan Lee uses less and less of his big blocks of narration in the panels. And so the story progresses much faster. He just lets the art do most of the talking, and of course he has his dialogue in there, but much less narration. So the last quarter of it, I would call almost fast-paced, at least for Stan Lee, you know. I also finished reading the illustrated Dracula. And this is a prose novel with art by the wonderful Jay Lee. I mean, look at this cover. Huh? So this is the original Bram Stoker novel, but just with Jay Lee illustrations throughout. I wish there was a lot more. And there's a couple of, if I'm going to pick nits on this, I would say a couple of times the art is not placed in the correct position with the text. You know, it's off by a couple of pages or something, and I found that very strange. I guess that's an editing mistake. Weird. I really love this. Like I said, I wish it had more Jay Lee art. The structure of this story, see, this was a reread for me. I had read this, but I was like a kid. I mean, so this was a very long time ago. And I didn't really remember much of it. But the entire novel is told through journal entries, diaries, and letters. From each time from a different character's perspective. You have journal entries from Mina, from Lucy, from Dr. Seward, and a couple others. And it's really good. I did not find it boring at all. I thought it was a great read. I was just enthralled the entire way. Yeah, if you've been thinking about reading Dracula, the original Stoker novel, and you just haven't, jump right in. It's fantastic. It is such a fun read. The only thing is, a couple of times I found myself having to stop and look up a word, which is unusual because, I'm not saying I know every word in the world, but I'm usually pretty good at that sort of thing. But a few words in here are very archaic, and I did have to look those up, like some of the words for different drugs and things and medical techniques. And I found that they were all real and they were all contemporary to this. So he got it right for the time, at least. I think this was written in like 18, or published in like 1894, something like that. But man, yeah, it really holds up, I think. So yeah, I think I might want to read more Bram Stoker stuff. Maybe Lair of the White Worm. That one looks really interesting. So every Sunday, I do try to read some of a prose novel. And so, having finished off those other ones, I did start the dust jacket here. Tolkien's The Silmarillion. Let me know if I pronounced it correctly. That's a tough one. I'm pretty sure it's Silmarillion. But I did start reading that. Haven't gotten very far along yet. The book is only 387 pages. Check out that. Huh? Is that great? But, man, the first, I don't know, looks like 50, 60 pages, that much, is not even part of that numbering. It's introductions and notations and whatnot. There's a whole thing on the illustrations to it, and it is illustrated. This edition I have here is illustrated by Tolkien as well. And I've never read this before at all. But anyway, that opening, all that introductory stuff is Roman numeral, and it's not even part of the 387. And I haven't even finished that yet, but I am working on it, but it is slow. At least that intro part. I'm hoping it picks up some. But this book is notoriously hard to read. A lot of people give up on it. So I'm going to try to finish it. So, because I'm a huge Tolkien fan, so I got to read it. So wish me luck on that. And hopefully I'll be much further along next week. So, Zoop's Colossal Conan. Are you one of the people that pre-ordered it and are waiting and waiting and waiting, like me? Well, I tell you, Soup. And if I had to do over, I'm not sure I would have ordered this book. It's still not here. I mean, I know Kickstarters, and this is a sort of a crowd-funded thing like a Kickstarter. If I get it, it could take a long time. But you know what? If you're that far off the mark and you're delayed and delayed and delayed, then you need to send out some notice to the people that have already paid their money, like me, okay? And they didn't do that. I mean, for months and months and months, there was no information. Nothing posted on the site, no emails, just zero. And to me, that is not cool. When they've got that much money from me tied up and still no book. I got a little bit of a problem with that. So on one of Omar Near Mint Conditions Q&As that he has, the live stream he does on Saturday, I asked Omar about that. I said, any word on the Colossal Conan from Zoop? It just keeps getting pushback and pushback, and we're not getting any info at all now. And he said he would reach out to him. And guess what? About 3 days later, we get this email you see here. So that makes me think, okay, was that because Omar contacted them? I mean, so if I hadn't said anything, would we still be months and months with no information? I mean, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's coincidence. But here's what it says. The books are done being printed and are in the process of being shipped over to the U.S. from the Asian printer. Books will most likely arrive at the port mid-October. From there, they must be tracked across the country to our fulfillment house on the East Coast, and then sorting can begin. We expect fulfillment to begin in early November. You know what? At this point, I would be surprised if we get these books this year. I'm predicting right now we're not going to see them till spring of next year. I hope I'm wrong. but yeah, this sucks, okay? This is a lot of money. This is probably, I won't say it's the most money I've ever spent on a single book, but it's close. It's in the top 4 for sure. I don't normally spend this kind of money on a single book, but I am a huge, huge Marvel Conan fan, going back to the original series, and I really wanted it. So on TV, we watched Agatha All Along, the Disney Plus Marvel show starring the Agatha Harkness character, introduced originally in the Scarlet Witch TV show. So Yeah, it was okay. It was fine. I mean, this should have been a big win for me because it should be right up my alley. I like magic and, you know, I don't know, but it was just okay for me. I didn't see any reason really to care about the Agatha character. Just didn't care. And I did not care for really any of the musical numbers throughout this. I wouldn't call it a musical, but there are definitely musical numbers in it. And I, I just didn't like them. The whole thing just left me cold. I did like this kid, like this guy, and of course, I love Aubrey Plaza. I wish they had given Aubrey Plaza a streaming Marvel show of her own. Not necessarily that character, a different character, a better character. But and I don't dislike Catherine Hahn. I think she's fine. But like I said, this whole thing it just didn't really do it for me. I mean, it was okay, it was fine, but I expected more, and I don't know. I think my wife liked it a lot more than I did. Now, a TV show I can wholeheartedly recommend, one I did love, is Chaos, Netflix's Chaos, starring the legendary Jeff Goldblum. This is a reimagining of the Greek myths, set in a sort of modern-ish setting. It's very difficult to explain, but it's in Greece. It's not today, but it looks kind of like the 90s maybe, but not exactly. It's wild. Very well done, very engrossing. Love the cast, love Jeff Goldblum. He is Zeus in this, and man, he is awesome. My buddy Jeff pointed out that he thought it fell off a little towards the end. It was a little bit of a rushed ending. And I think that's fair. That's a fair criticism. The first half and the middle was better than the very end. But it's not terrible, the ending. It's not bad. And I guess the theory is that maybe they weren't sure if they were going to get picked up for season 2, which I'm pretty sure they have been. I think that was confirmed. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. Crush my soul down in the comments if it didn't get picked up, but I think it did. So I think they wanted to wrap up the one plot line and have it to where the ending was acceptable if they didn't go on to season 2. So I think that's what they did here. But yeah, I loved it. This was very awesome, and just loved it all the way through. So I wholeheartedly recommend Chaos. If you haven't watched that yet, yeah, put that on your list. So last Sunday, Sunday before last, I guess, by the time this goes up on this coming Monday, doesn't matter. But I just tell you, I did read. I do a single issue read every week. I read at least one out of my den over there of unread singles. Let's see, I'm halfway through it now, probably, but. Maybe not. Counting the magazine size stuff, it's not halfway. I've still got a ways to go. But I read Incredible Hulk number 312. So this is from 1985, and it's right in the middle of the Bill Mantlo run, or maybe toward the end. The cover and the interior art are by a very young Mike Mignola. I don't know exactly how old he was here, but this is some of his very earliest work. And he hasn't got his style nailed down yet, but it's still really good. Really, really enjoyed this. And I think this is one of the issues that's been cited that the sort of legend goes that Bill Mantlo had sort of partially ripped off the plot in the story here from the Barry Windsor Smith story that eventually became Monsters, but he had presented to Marvel as a Hulk arc, and they rejected it, I guess, or there was some issue. I don't know. There was an argument with the editorial. I don't know what happened, but it ended up not becoming a Hulk thing. And years later, he finished it as Monsters, which is really good, by the way. It's hardcore, but it's good. So yeah, this is kind of historic for that bit as well, I guess. But yeah, I really like this issue. I can't wait for the Bill Mantlo run to get collected in an Omni, because I'm getting it. Another little bit of prose I read was this little bitty, let me just grab it here. Probably won't focus here, but this is Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy. Actually, the full title is Deep Thoughts, Inspiration for the Uninspired by Jack Handy. And this is a little 96-page softcover collection of the Deep Thoughts segments from SNL, Saturday Night Live. Now, I am an unabashed, unapologetic Saturday Night Live fan. I grew up with the show from episode 1, and I am still watching it today. I know it's real fun and popular, I guess, and trendy to bash on SNL now, but I still love it. I mean, some are better than others, obviously. They all can't be winners. Even the original cast, every episode was not a winner, or at least not all the way through. But I digress. So I did read this. Kristen picked this up somewhere for me, and it's pretty great. I think a lot of it was used on the show, maybe not all of it. I did remember some of them, though. But yeah, that's great. If you happen to find that somewhere and you're a fan of that segment from SNL, pick that up. So, like I said, the Silver Surfer was introduced during the issues in that Fantastic Four Omnibus Volume 3. So I thought before I go on to Fantastic Four Omnibus Volume 4, I should read my Taschen Silver Surfer Great Big Giant book. But if you want to see more of that book, or see me unboxing it at least, check out the video where I unbox that. I'll link it above if you haven't seen that. But yeah, I did start reading that. I'm about, 25% through maybe now. And it's a pretty fast read for Silver Age Stan Lee, for sure. There's not a ton of exposition and prologues and narration boxes, so it goes a lot faster than some of the early FF stuff did. So this book is ginormous. It is huge. It's almost too big, and I love the big books, so, I cannot lie. Anyway, this collects all 18 issues of the original Silver Surfer run. Man, I tried to get this for so long. I tried to collect these in singles, and I tried to collect the Fantasy Masterpieces reprints of them that they had back in the day. Never succeeded. So I hadn't read a lot of this. I'd read a couple issues here and there. Joe Sinnott inks the first several issues of this. Really looks good on John Buscema. Forgot to mention, of course, John Buscema does the art throughout this. All except for the last issue, 18, has Jack Kirby art, which is odd. You'd think it'd been the other way around, but that's not how it went down. But yeah, I do love this era of John Buscema art. I love all eras of John Buscema art, And I love the Joe Sinnott inking on it. It looks really good. Around issue 4, John's brother Sal takes over on inking. And that's a great match as well. Now, this collection does not include the backup stories. And in fact, it includes the ads, the house ads, and I think all of the original ads and the covers, but not the backup stories. Now, some of the backup stories I've learned through reading the introduction at the beginning of this book were reprints or were retellings of reprints. So it's kind of weird, and I'm probably not missing a lot by not having that material. But I didn't know the whole thing was not included when I got it, but that's okay. Another thing I didn't know, but I'm learning now, is that I don't know if all of them were, but a lot of the Silver Surfer issues, someone who has more of the original books can tell me. Comment below, please. But it looks like many of them, if not all of them, were that awful square binding that Marvel put on some single issues back then. And it sucks because you've got gutter laws. The cover's almost always separated at the corner. It starts falling off. They're very hard to get in good condition. That explains why I was never able to obtain them, because it's so expensive at the higher grades because the books fall apart. That awful square binding was terrible. And it was because of the extra material, those backup stories, that made it longer. Because the actual Silver Surfer material in these is only like the standard 20 to 22 pages. A few of them go a little further than that, but yeah, some of them go to 40, I think. So I guess it's just as well I got this. And actually, I gotta say, after reading this much of it, this is the most perfectly bound hardcover I've ever experienced. It's just perfect. The binding, the eye, as they call it, everything is perfectly aligned. It's like a human actually examined each and every copy to look for defects and reject them. And I assume that's what happened here. That's probably what happens to all these. I think it's limited to 1,000 copies. And I have I didn't put it in my notes, but I think mine is 547, 587, something like that, of 1,000. And so I assume that these are, they're printed in Italy. So that's one thing. And I'm thinking that these are inspected one by one by one, because it's the most flawless hardcover I've ever experienced. And it was just a joy to read. And they do a unique thing too, where they print the pages on what I can only describe as pulp paper, like the original comics, but it's thicker and it's tougher. It's like the highest quality version of newsprint you can think of, but then double the thickness, if not triple. They're wonderful. And then the covers and the back cover are done on glossy cardstock, just like the original comic books. Except again, a little bit higher quality and this enormous size. It's just perfection. It really is. If I could afford it, I would want to collect all of the Taschen Marvel books because there's a lot of them. You can look on Taylor Talks Comics channel. He profiles a lot of these books. I think he has all of them, or he's going to get all of them. I don't know, but I envy him for that because if I could afford it, I would get all of these. It's just the best way to read a comic book. I mean, obviously it's not portable, so you need to be at a table or something. I've been reading them on my bed, laying on my stomach. But yeah, it's almost too big for that. I almost have to get up over it a little bit to to get to the top panels. With it lying flat on the bed. But yeah, it'd probably be easier on a table like this. But yeah, it's definitely something you don't want to carry around. They're very heavy. But man, it is the most perfectly bound hardcover I've ever experienced. So if you can afford it or catch it on sale, I got this 50% off, then do it. It's they're perfect. That's about all I could say. Well, that's about all I got this week. I hope you enjoyed this new format, and we'll find out. And if this is well received, then I'll keep going with this style of video. And next week, I'll have been a little further into the Silver Surfer because I'm reading some every night. And I'm sure I'll have more comments about that as I get along, as well as all the other things I read or watch or observe that I feel like talking about here. So, hope you like this. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you next week, if not sooner.